My name's Paul Patterson. I worked at Penn State for 30 years and am recently retired with emeritus status. I've been a Poultry Science Association member since 1982. I grew up in a small town in eastern Washington, Pullman, Washington. It had a great deal of agriculture in the area, and Washington State University was the land-grant university. In fact, my dad was a faculty member in the horticulture department. My mom worked for USDA. She was a statistician who worked with a wheat geneticist. It was just a great place to grow up. There were lots of mountains, forests, rivers, and a lot of freedom to explore and have some good times. I was chased by chickens as a kid on a friend's farm, but really had no engagement with chickens much at that time. I was, however, really interested in animals and got involved with our high school agriculture program. I had cattle and sheep and hog projects. In high school, I judged livestock, was pretty involved in FFA, and I was always a horseback rider from early on in grade school through high school and any chance I could ride after that. I was an animal science major at Washington State University with a focus on cattle and horses. I was pretty involved in Alpha Zeta. I was an officer in our chapter there at WSU. I actually did a master's project in horse nutrition working with Craig Kuhn when he was at Washington State University. He enlisted me into a broiler study on the side looking at the methionine requirements for breast muscle yield. Wow, I thought this was much more sophisticated nutrition research, so I decided to continue on in poultry science and nutrition and applied to a graduate program at the University of Wisconsin. There, my advisor was Dr. Milt Sunday. I learned a lot of poultry science from the faculty at Wisconsin and appreciated the freedom to chase down several lines of research there. Mark Cook was a new faculty member at the time, and he was a great person to work with, and we did several studies together looking at leg problems in meat-type poultry. My first job was at the University of Hawaii in the Animal Science Department as an extension poultry specialist. I had a three-way split with extension, research, and teaching. I really enjoyed the teaching part, working with the students and the Hawaii egg producers and growers, and the corresponding applied research we did there in Hawaii. Instead of an extension vehicle, I got a coupon book full of airplane coupons to visit the outer island producers. We did a lot of work on egg quality, nutrition, housing, ventilation, and nutrient management during the 4 years I was there in Hawaii. I think we did a lot of good. We grew the consumption of island poultry meat and eggs during the time I was there with a program called Island Fresh with the Department of Agriculture. Then I went to Penn State University in 1992 as an extension poultry specialist with a focus primarily on the egg industry. This was a 70-30 extension research appointment. Bill Weaver hired me and was my department head. He really knew a lot about extension and introduced me to all the key players in the Pennsylvania poultry industry. His philosophy was to get you the resources you needed to travel and then get out of your way. I always appreciated that. A couple of years later, Bill hired Mike Hewlett from Virginia Tech to be our broiler turkey meat bird specialist. It was just great working with Mike, and together I think we did a lot of good extension programming and applied research for the poultry industry in Pennsylvania and the Mid-Atlantic. Honestly, there are a lot of times I think our work was helpful or made a difference. But one challenge early in the 1990s was the Northeast egg industry was just plagued by Salmonella enteritidis. I was part of a team of industry professionals, veterinarians from Penn State University and the University of Pennsylvania, and folks from USDA. We were looking for sources of Salmonella enteritidis and procedures to reduce the risk of passing it on to hens, eggs, and people. The Pennsylvania Egg Quality Assurance Program was born out of that early work, and that eventually led to the evolution of the FDA egg safety rule in 2010 as SE continued to move throughout the United States. We still have a very active PCAP program today in Pennsylvania, and I just summarized a 30-year history of the program. Looking back in terms of flock positivity and sample positivity, we've made literally 100-fold reductions in that level of positivity and have had no egg positive in the last several years. It's just an amazing team effort that went into that, driven by egg producers that wanted the public to have confidence in their eggs again. I also have to mention the pleasure I got working with undergrads and grad students, guiding them through their studies, their research experiences, often with the finale of a presentation at PSA or some other platform. Many of these former students are contributing to our profession today, and it's a real joy to see them working in their university or industry roles. I'm fortunate to have had many great poultry scientists that I looked up to and guided me along the way. But that one individual would probably be my dad. I think I mentioned he was a horticulturist at WSU. He had a teaching research appointment working with tree fruit production, post-harvest physiology, and modified atmosphere storage of apples, cherries, and other fruit. He had an extension specialist colleague and friend from his Cornell days, and they worked very closely together solving industry challenges and making the Washington State the largest apple producer packer in the country. They were really a perfect example or mentor of how the three legs of the land grant mission, research, extension, and teaching were supposed to work. I've been a PSA board member and then later a term as the Secretary Treasurer, and on a lot of different committees over the years. I've been a subject editor, associate editor for poultry science in the Journal of Applied Poultry Research multiple times. And then we hosted the meeting back in 1998 at Penn State University. I always liked helping out as a session chair or a judge for the student posters and presentation. And I've been pretty active with the US branch of the World's Poultry Science Association and the American Poultry Historical Society. I think the greatest thing about PSA is just being a member, enjoying the people, the profession, and the collegiality of our association. Poultry science was a huge resource for networking with other poultry researchers and extension specialists. Every year I looked forward to attending and presenting at our annual meeting in Atlanta and the national meeting. Rich Reynolds was our USDA National Extension Leader and would bring all the extension specialists together to share wares, to talk about their challenges and programming they were doing. I made a lot of friends and learned a lot from my colleagues and the professional development platform that the Poultry Science Association provided. The other great thing about poultry science was I met my wife, Nuket, at the 1990 Southern Poultry Science meeting in Atlanta. She was a grad student working on her PhD at Auburn with Ed Moran. We met just before she gave a presentation. Then we just kept bumping into each other at the meeting, and the rest is history. And also, the poultry science meetings were always a welcoming place for families too. We often took our boys, Kevin and Cameron, to the meeting to see new places, meet our professors, our friends, and their children too. Being named a PSA Fellow is just great to be included with some pretty remarkable people for who I have a great deal of respect for. And secondly, I think it's just a nod or an acknowledgement that maybe my contributions to PSA, like those before me, were acceptable or appreciated. Also, I'm really grateful to my former student, Woo-Kyun Kim, who's now faculty at the University of Georgia in Athens. He's just making a remarkable contribution to our field and who nominated for me for this Fellows Award. Thank you, Woo-Kyun. Thank you. And finally, I'm so fortunate to have bumped into my wife, Nuket, all those years ago at Southern Poultry Science. As a fellow poultry scientist, we've worked together many times over the years. Back in Hawaii, we did several studies and papers together, and we continue to work together here at Penn State. She's the perfect lab partner, colleague, wife, and mother. I'm so blessed. Thank you, Nuket.